there are deep state elements that are using their access and are abusing the trust put in them by the American people to settle political scores. So start with that, everybody. And then on the, oh my gosh, it's so scary, the nuclear's, we don't know what the country is. We don't know what the information is. It's so secret that somebody was willing to, who has legal access to it, who has access to the classified, speak to reporters about it, which, why would you do that? Why are you talking to reporters about this? And then you also have to add, there's just a few layers here, the deep state elements who lied to us for 4 years about Russia collusion, their media allies who amplified these lies, have never apologized, have never retracted. CNN and the New York Times gave themselves awards,
Pulitzers,
for their reporting on Russia collusion. They think that we're going to not even just trust them, give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, are they out of their bleeping minds? We have breaking news from yesterday. I guess that's not really breaking news anymore, but it's fun to say. And as we've promised you all along, especially from now until Election Day, we will focus on the economy, crime, the border, COVID policies, accountability for decision-making of the Democrat apparatus and in our politics more broadly. And as needed, we will swat down the latest effort to make this about Trump and the threats to our democracy. And you have yet another instance, yet another time where we have, oh, look at this, a leak to the Washington Post that's supposed to be so scary about how awful Trump is. Here's the headline, in case you missed it. Material on foreign nations' nuclear capability seized at Trump's Mar-a-Lago. And then the subheadline here is, some seized documents were so closely held, only the president, a cabinet level, or a near cabinet level official could authorize others to know. Okay. There's a lot of, first of all, the fact that we continue, Clay, to get these deep state leaks. Who could possibly be telling the Washington Post about this?
Correct.
An FBI official or a DOJ official who is a deep state, Hillary-loving, Biden-voting lunatic, basically. Those are the only sources for this information that you could possibly have. So once again, we have people that are supposed, and let me just say, I came from the intelligence community. I had a top secret clearance, and the notion that I ever would have spoken to a newspaper and shared,
well, it's a crime, right?
Well, first of all, it's illegal.
Yes.
But even if it, it depends on what you tell the newspaper. But it's also a violation of your ethics. You are supposed to serve in that role, not use your access to play partisan hit games, which is exactly what this is. So we're seeing once again there are deep state elements that are using their access and are abusing the trust put in them by the American people to settle political scores. So start with that, everybody. And then on the, oh my gosh, it's so scary, the nuclear's, we don't know what the country is. We don't know what the information is. It's so secret that somebody was willing to, who has legal access to it, who has access to the classified, speak to reporters about it, which, why would you do that? Why are you talking to reporters about this? And then you also have to add, there's just a few layers here, the deep state elements who lied to us for 4 years about Russia collusion, their media allies who amplified these lies, have never apologized, have never retracted. CNN and the New York Times gave themselves awards,
Pulitzers,
for their reporting on Russia collusion. They think that we're going to not even just trust them, give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, are they out of their bleeping minds? They can go, you-know-what themselves. Like, this is just, Clay, when are they going to get the hint?
What I think is most amazing about the continued fallout of the Mar-a-Lago raid is how quickly January 6th vanished. If you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what is going on here? It is a desperate ploy to get Trump, and they will jump from one boat to another instantaneously. We spent the whole summer, Buck, being told over and over again how outlandish, unacceptable, seditious the behavior was of Donald Trump related to January 6th. That was the message that Democrats wanted to sell to us. The moment that there was a raid on Mar-a-Lago and confidential documents and an issue with the National Archives emerged, every Democrat operative and their friends in the media completely bailed on the January 6th narrative and turned into, oh, confidential documents, there have to be charges brought on this issue. And the other thing I would say we need to be aware of is Donald Trump is Joe Biden's life vest. Let me explain what I mean by that, Buck. Joe Biden has no reason to exist but for Donald Trump. He wasn't elected himself. He ran on, I'm not Donald Trump. It is no great surprise to me that even though he delivered the worst speech by the worst president of any of our lives on Thursday of last week, Biden is so desperate for Trump to be in the news that he has to wrap himself around Trump because otherwise he sinks and Democrats go ahead and let his political obituary be written.
I'm going to give you one guess. What do you think the story that CNN's diving into right now as we speak is?
The ramifications associated with the nuclear documents
this story,
that are supposed
the most
to be
important
uncovered.
thing in America, right? California is telling people shut off your electricity because the blackouts are coming.
Set your thermostats to 78. We can't actually provide any kind of power.
There are people who know the financial world well who say the indicators are we're about to hit a really ugly recession, and the Biden regime and the media are doing everything they can to delay their recognition of this until after the election. Main story on CNN right now is the foreign nuke story, and it's all supposed to be so scary. Clay, it's something that we all need to remember. They talk so much about the threat to democracy, right? And if you're trying to come up with one of the ways to destroy, and we are a republic, not a democracy, but to destroy a government with rule of law, to destroy representative government, prosecuting your political opponents, using the judicial branch effectively as a weapon and the investigative branches of the federal government as a weapon against people you disagree with politically, can really destroy a country very quickly. It destroys all faith in the institutions. It destroys all faith in the people who are employed by the state and have guns and can take away your freedom, which is what we've seen going on at the federal level. Look at all of the attempts to bring criminal charges against Donald Trump, to bring criminal charges against his family members. You see, they've got some, New York State is bringing something against Bannon, apparently, Steve Bannon later this week. They never stop. They are ruthless, and they use the law as a weapon of politics in the most obvious ways. And the scary part is they think they're the good guys. This is the part of it that's really, it's not like in the movies where they're like, yes, I've made a deal with the devil. They're like, no, we're saving democracy. These idiot libs are destroying democracy.
Well, I was thinking about this last night. If you were convinced that Donald Trump was Hitler, what would you do? The answer is everything the Democrats are doing. They have convinced themselves in their delusional brains that Donald Trump is the modern day equivalent of Hitler. And in their minds, everything that they are doing, which is actually destroying the underpinning foundations of our country's republic and democracy, is justified because of the existential threat of Trump/Hitler. And your point is such a good one. That's the way their brains are working, Buck. But I think we can't hammer on this enough. Merrick Garland did something that has never occurred in the history of this country. He ordered a raid on the former president of the United States, who is currently the chief political rival of his boss. If you want to talk about threats to our sacred democracy, what he did is truly unprecedented and represents the actual threat to democracy. The response to Trump is far more dangerous to our country than anything Donald Trump could have ever done. And if you really thought he was Hitler, Do you know that Trump had the greatest opportunity to seize power in most of our lives in the early days of COVID? And do you know what Trump did? Deferred to state governor and state mayors and allowed federalism to flourish for both good and ill in response to COVID. He had the opportunity, if he were truly a dictator, to undertake powers the likes of which we've never seen. Who did that? Joe Biden, when he came into office and told every single person out there, you got to get the jab or you can't work.
This goes right to the center, I believe, of the Democrat mentality today. It reminds me of the quote from the great movie, A Man for All Seasons. Remember this one, Clay? William Roper says, yes, I'd cut down every law in England to do that, meaning to get the devil, in this case, Trump. And Sir Thomas More responds, oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned round you, where would you hide, Roper, with all the laws being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's laws, not God's. And the idea here being Democrats decided that reportage, journalism, and they were actually saying this at one point, journalism under Trump, the truth under Trump meant do anything you can to destroy this guy. That was what journalists decided.
That was their goal.
Social media companies, and I would commend Glenn Greenwald, a man of the left, by the way, somebody I have disagreed with publicly on some things in the past, but who does abide by a set of principles when it comes to free speech and civil liberties. You know, he's an ACLU guy basically from 30 or 40 years ago. Now the ACLU is just a leftist,
They believe words are violence.
Yeah, I mean, the ACLU is effectively enforcing the dictates of the left under the guise of it being liberty. But Greenwald had an amazing thread last night on how
I read it.
It's going viral everywhere. The social media companies are working with government in a way to Democrats in government, the Biden regime, to censor speech and shut down debate on more and more issues. This problem is becoming more urgent, not less. They absolutely did everything they could to stop the Hunter Biden laptop from coming out. That's just one example. COVID, election stuff. There's so many areas. The latest polling says 63% of Americans, New York Post had this, say the Hunter Biden laptop story is important and would have impacted voters had they actually known about this. They are lying to you, everybody. They are pretending to be something that they are not. And then they wonder why we don't feel good. You know, when we say the election is stolen or we say the election was rigged, there's a whole bunch of ways in which we can talk and which we do talk about that. And that's why I think, increasingly they keep accusing this creates almost a whirlpool of insanity that goes faster and faster for them. They keep accusing us of what they're actually doing. They're destroying democracy, and they think that we're destroying democracy. They're ending rule of law, and they think we're ending rule of law. And to your point about what Merrick Garland just did with Trump, how does that look now to everybody? Now that we have more information, now we've all seen it, they really had to send in dozens of FBI agents to seize the documents that were in Trump's office in a Mar-a-Lago's basement. That was necessary? Give me a break.
Yeah. And the norms are breaking. And when you break the norms, frankly, if I'm Joe Biden, I'm not going to be very safe. Do you feel like you're not going to get raided when the precedent becomes everybody investigates their former chief political rival? I mean, it is a major, it's a cross the Rubicon moment. And the fact that most people who claim that our sacred democracy is in danger are not aware of that, it comes back to, I really think you have to go to the essence of it. They legitimately believe Trump is Hitler. They think he's the devil.